Monica, it's great to meet you. Thanks for joining our Building Builders podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks. We've been, really looking forward to it. I maybe just to get started and, let our listeners know a little bit about yourself. Could you just kind of introduce yourself, talk about what you've been up to? I think there's a lot of construction safety stuff in there. Excited to talk about it.
Sure. So my name's Monica Rakoczy. I am the owner and founder of a company called Enter Training Solutions. My background is I've been in construction for about 20 years now. I did not start in safety. I didn't get into safety till a little over halfway into my career, and I kind of fell into it. But when I got there, I absolutely fell in love with it. My background is more excavation work. So I really focus a lot on trenching and excavation, but I do a little bit of everything out there. And the whole premise of my business is to try to keep safety a little bit fun and engaging so that people don't zone out and they actually don't hate coming to training and they actually enjoy it.
Well, that's awesome. So glad that you're out there doing that and, keeping everyone safe and, providing the awareness. We really want to talk about equipment safety today or primarily, want to focus in there. So it sounds like there's two areas of safety that are incredibly important, being behavior-based safety and safety technology. Are those the major trends over the last few years? Are there any others?
Oh, sure. So definitely huge trends on those. So we've got new technology that's coming out that is just absolutely incredible. But we're also finding that behavior-based is where we're having a good chunk of our accidents. So we're focusing a lot on those two items. Now, those two items can be technology-driven. You talk about behavior-based and distractions and stuff. But it can also be stress. It can also be a variety of other items out there, even down to what equipment we're using that has nothing to do with technology, but more so on the basic structure of the way it's built.
Mm-hmm. Do you... Well, actually, let me ask this question first. There's a ton of safety technology and equipment now, but internal and external technologies, it seems. What do you think are the best ones?
Oh, gosh, there's so many cool items out there. I am super excited about, on the external side, I think it's really, really cool to see some of the alerts that are given, like SIG alarm and things like that, that you can mount onto your heavy equipment that tell you tell your operator when they're getting too close to power lines. It actually measures the power coming off of it, gives your operators information about all of that, which is amazing. And the fact that they're mountable onto multiple different machines means people are no longer married to only one machine having that capability. I think other really cool pieces of tech out there are things like there's the LED light structures now for the mining equipment. It's things that you can actually mount on the outside of the machines that gives the people around the machine a heads up as to where the blind sides are of your operators, so they know not to walk into that, which is absolutely incredible. One of my favorite ones, behavior-based, is something called Alert Meter. Alert Meter came about after the Exxon Valdez incident. Tons and tons of research that went into it. They actually partnered with NIOSH and NASA. And this is something where we can measure the awareness of the operator themselves. So it's kind of like a little brain game that the operators can play. When they get hired, they get a baseline of what their normal functions are. And let's say they've got a high-risk activity going on that day. They can go through the alert meter to make sure that their cognitive abilities that day are on point. So we're not asking anybody that's tired, stressed, distracted, or anything else like that to do something that's heavy risk.
It's all super cool features. I mean, frankly, I didn't know a lot of these existed, but that's amazing. With technology, a lot of times, just even thinking about being in a car, or, last time I was in an excavator is probably a year ago, but, sometimes you just want to play with the technology, right? And you want to test it out and see what it's capable of. Are these safety features ever distractions themselves?
Yeah. I would definitely say that. And I love safety technology. I think it's a great addition to the field, but sometimes we can become a little bit too reliant on it.
Right.
And there's so many studies behind that showing that. So one of my favorite studies is of a crosswalk, where they videotaped people who were going across a crosswalk. And before you cross a crosswalk, you obviously look both ways. And then they installed a safety device. They installed one of those walk, don't walk signs. And what they found is when they filmed it is that people would now rely solely on the safety device. And as soon as that little green man popped up, they'd start walking across the street, and then they'd no longer look left and right. So my big thing is safety technology is amazing, but it should be in addition to the operator's normal awareness and routine. It should never be relied solely upon.
Right. It seems like there must be, some amount of training and some amount of, just time in field with using the equipment and that safety feature for it to actually become effective. There's got to be, that little bit of time in the middle where, there's some onboarding required.
Absolutely. Yes.
Are there any features that you think are not worth it, or maybe overrated?
Oh gosh, I think I haven't seen anything yet where I don't get the purpose of it. I think some are better than others. There are, boom assists that you can put on the back of swing zones for truck cranes and excavators that are magnets. And in some situations, that's not going to work. But there are some situations where those do work, where that swing zone has that extra barrier around it, which is really cool. I think every construction company needs to really identify what's going on with them and their type of work environment as to what's going to be functional and what's not, because not every solution is the right fit for everyone.
Right. Every safety solution is somewhat customized per job site.
Exactly.
Are there is there anything coming out that, you're really excited about that hasn't, hit the ground yet?
Oh my gosh. There are so many things that are always coming out in the industry, and it's just absolutely fascinating. I get so excited when I go to these trade shows to see what people are working on. You know what, off the top of my head, as far as something new that's coming, not so much on the operator side, but there's a really cool product out of Australia that's coming up. It's an emergency evacuation and alert system and an emergency response system that's customizable to every job site. So let's say you've got a big mine site, you've got a big construction site where people are very spread out. There are emergency buttons that people can station around their site. And once you hit it, it sends an alert to everybody who's on your emergency response team, tells them exactly the coordinates of where the incident is going on. There's different buttons that you can push as far as what type of emergency it is. So response time is now so much faster to get help out there. So if a machine's on fire or somebody has a heart attack out on a big field, it used to be where you had to call the foreman had to get a hold of whoever they thought was the closest person to that site, and all those phone calls take time. So this is a product that I'm really, really excited to see work its way into the U.S.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. What do you think the timeline is?
I know that they're braced and ready. So they're boots on the ground starting now. I think they'd love to be up and fully operational in probably about a year. So I think it's going to be amazing.
Wow, that's exciting. So thinking about the operator themselves, with all of this technology, it's kind of, I feel like if I was an operator, I might be thinking, is there additional liability on myself now, saying that, hey, there was equipment, there's tools out there that could have, protected somebody or, helped solve this problem. Is there any, advice you would have for operators, things that they can do? And, I guess the other question is, are they more liable now? What should they do to protect themselves?
So as far as more liable, I think operators have always had a huge amount of liability on them. We put a tremendous amount of pressure on our equipment operators to make sure everybody stays safe. As far as what I would want from them, I need my operators to be more open. I think that's going to be a huge part of preventing some incidents. And what I mean by more open is a lot of our incidents are happening because somebody's distracted or somebody is tired or they're being pushed to get things done in non-ideal conditions. And I think the biggest thing that we can ask for our operators is when they're seeing these things happen, when they're feeling these things happen, trust your gut. Like, nobody knows the machine better than that operator. And if you are uncomfortable with any task out there, say no. We've come a long way in understanding stop work authority and respecting it. And I am a big, huge fan of, if you're not comfortable, you stop, because nobody knows it better than you.
Right. There's a reason you're uncomfortable, a reason why you're having this gut feeling.
Yep.
Yeah, great point. And definitely it's becoming more and more safe to do so, as you're kind of saying there. So you provide OSHA certified training, and it's something we think and talk about all the time here. Why does it seem like there's no federal countrywide rules about training and licensing for equipment operators? Is it right?
It is. I make jokes about it all the time. It does seem very bizarre that you have to have training to operate like a power-propelled pallet jack, but not for your big D10 dozers. And it's not that we don't require training. It is that we tell people that they have to follow the equipment manufacturer's manuals. So when OSHA says that they're putting the onus on to the companies in order to, make sure everybody's trained up, if you actually read the manuals, which is where people don't do things, if you read through the manual, right in the manual, it specifically states that that person, whoever the operator is required to read the whole manual before they operate it, and they're required to have training in order to understand that piece of machinery. So while there is no federal standard stating that they have to have specific equipment or training to operate dozers or operate excavators or anything else, what OSHA and all the other regulatory agencies will do is they'll fall back and say, it's your responsibility to follow manufacturer's guidelines. So no specific regulation, but still a requirement.
So it seems like, the rules change somewhat depending on the type of equipment. Why is that the case?
A big thing is OSHA does require certain training for powered industrial trucks. So your forklifts, your telehandlers, things like that. Yeah. The reason that is out there is because we have the sheer number of people operating powered industrial trucks is massive. You have a little over 500,000 operators in the U.S. And with those huge numbers comes a tremendous amount of accidents. The statistics are unbelievable with it. You're talking about close to 100,000 injuries a year, just operating powered industrial trucks. And it's just a larger statistic than you're looking at with your land moving equipment or other heavy equipment. So because it's a little bit more universal and more readily acceptable, they want to make sure that they have a little bit more specialized training in those types of equipment.
On a similar note, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that on some job specific, or some specific job sites, you do need additional training or certification. Is that right? If you're working beside a gas line, or if you're, running an excavator on a highway?
Yep, absolutely. Right? So it all depends on where you're working and who you're working for. There's going to be certain areas like New York City and Philadelphia requiring every worker now to have at least an OSHA 10. Some have OSHA 30s. They're putting expiration dates on those, which is not an OSHA thing. That's a jurisdiction thing. I know just to dig in the city of Philadelphia at this point, you need to go to a 2 or 3 day full OSHA competent person excavation training. So it all is dependent upon where you're working and whose job sites you're on, because there are going to be even just the larger GCs out there are going to put a lot of requirements, because the larger the GC, the more risk and liability on them, the more people that they're hiring. They want to make sure that they've got a little beefier kind of role in how they're requiring their subs to come prepared.
So is the onus on the company or on the company to provide the training, or on the operator to build it up themselves?
It is on the company. So it's always going to lie on the companies and make sure that their equipment is trained. OSHA doesn't regulate people, it regulates companies. So if you're going to ask somebody to, and this is my way of saying it, if you're going to ask somebody to make money for you, which is what you're asking of an operator, the responsibility is on you to make sure that they've got the right training, the right safety equipment, everything else like that. So it will always fall on to the company themselves to make sure the training is there.
Okay. So when it comes to smaller contractors who may not have the same amount of resources, do you have any sort of advice on how they should handle equipment training, or is it just kind of the same for large and small companies?
Yeah. So the unfortunate thing is the requirements are the same if you have 2 employees or 2,000 employees. And when you talk about somebody who has all the larger numbers, they have a lot more money to spend on training and things like that. But at this point in time, we have so many organizations out there that are willing to help out with pooling resources. So my big piece of advice for those smaller companies is get involved. Be involved in your local 811s, be involved in your local ABCs, AGCs, because it's through those folks that you're going to get much more discounted rates in order to train your onesie twosies versus having somebody actually come to you and do training for 20 people at one time.
Awesome. And so that kind of leads me into this, like, buyer rent. Are there safety considerations that play a role when you make those decisions?
Oh gosh, yes. So absolutely, I think both have their pluses and their minuses. Again, every company is going to have to kind of look at it on their end. And one of the jobs that I had in my construction career was I was an equipment director for a large construction company. And even our internal fleet, we had assignments of, how much we would charge to rent it per hour. And it had to match similar to what the other rental companies were doing. And when you look at that as to how much you're charging your job to have that piece of equipment out there, over time, you can take those numbers and see, okay, is it worth it to pay for it, have that inside our fleet, but then don't forget all the money that you're going to have to put on. Big fan of preventative maintenance programs, making sure that you have qualified workers, making sure that you're staying up to date on all of the regulations that are out there with the heavy equipment these days. It is a lot of money for an investment, but it could be worth it depending on how much you're using the equipment. My big caution with equipment is a lot of people like to go to auctions or, sales of companies going out of business or used equipment. I'm not opposed to it. I think you can get really great deals, but you really got to have somebody who knows what they're looking at come with you and really give that machine a good work through. There's a lot of things a fresh coat of paint can hide, and you don't want to end up with a lemon that you just spent $100,000 on that is just going to be a money pit for you.
So if I can dive just a little deeper on this one, with equipment ownership, I'm assuming that, the risk then is on the contractor to have the best quality, maintenance. But, maybe some savings that they're purchasing specialized safety equipment, once, and then on rental, the onus is really on, most of the onus is probably on the rental company to maintain the equipment properly. But a downside would be the specialized add-on safety features. Is that right?
Yeah. So you have the ability to customize your machines for the exact type of work that you have. I would say, as far as rental companies go, we would love to say that all of the risk is on the rental company, but realistically speaking, catching the defects is still on the renter. So it is their responsibility to make sure that that machine passes its daily checks, that it's in good condition, and then you can call the rental company in order to come fix it, but it's still your responsibility to check everything. The thing that I don't love about rentals is you just never know what you're going to get. And that's the benefit of owning, is your operators can become very proficient in that specific machine. They know it. They know its quirks. They know when it's acting weird. So they have that kind of, like we were talking before, that gut sense when something's going wrong with it, which can help you out in the long run of safety as well.
Yeah, kind of both with rental and with owning. After being in any piece of equipment for some time, you start to pick up on, noises or some kind of, something's acting a little bit different, I think is what you're saying there. Yeah, for sure. I've definitely experienced that as well. So Monica, we always ask everyone, do you have a favorite piece of equipment?
I'm a big dig girl, so I love like a good long stick excavator. I used to be big into cat. That's where I started my career. I had all the little cat toys, but at this point, I have no preference as to brand because they're all coming up with such amazing things. So I'm super excited about everything that's out there, and it's just a constant guessing game as to what they're going to come out with next.
I think you're the first person that has said a long stick excavator. I love it. Yeah, those things are awesome. Very nice. Have you operated it yourself?
I got to play in them a little bit, but my experience is much more on smaller pieces. So I've gotten to sit around and kind of learn the controls, but no, not on an actual job site. I'm that kid who's driving down the highway. You see a brand new excavator trolling down the road, and all you want to do is follow it and see where it's going.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Same. I love those long reaches. I've never operated one myself. I've most pieces of equipment, but I haven't actually been in the seat of a long reach. I would love to. They look really cool.
Yes.
Nice. So Monica, how can our listeners find you if they have questions or want to reach out?
Sure. So you can always go to my website. It's an easy way to get a hold of me. There's a contact form right on there. It is www.entertrainingsolutions.com. So enter training, training, and solutions with an S.com. Or you can always email me at monica@entertrainingsolutions.com as well.
Awesome. Thanks. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Monica. It's been great getting to know you and talking about equipment safety today.
Thank you so much for the invite. It was a blast.
Nice. Yeah, thanks again.